and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and this is Rumor Control. Here are the facts. This is a weekly podcast in which we discuss movies, TV, books, and whatever else we feel like talking about. This is my co-host, Matt Freeman. Matt, you're not looking so good over there, buddy.
I could be reworked, but I'll never be top of the line again. I'd rather be nothing.
I guess I'm going to just switch you off now. This is the weekly show. This week on the show, we are beginning a new topic for our ongoing Deconstructing Director series. It's a very exciting time.
Yeah, that's right. For those of you who might be joining us for the very first time on the series, we dive deep into the filmography of a director of our choosing, going chronologically from his first film to his latest. And we're trying to explore the films and connect them together to see if we can learn about these directors as people and as creators, what inspires them, what challenges them, what makes them tick, and what makes them do so damn good at their job.
Yeah, in the past, we've done a long-form series on the Wachowski sisters and M. Night Shyamalan, but this time, we'll be taking aim at the films of David Fincher. We've got 10 films on the docket for us, Matt, so we're going to be here for a while. We do the show every other week. So we'll be here for at least the next 20 weeks, really diving into David Fincher. And first up, we have Fincher's first film, the 1992 continuation of the Alien series, Alien 3, or Alien Cubed.
Yeah.
Why did they call it Alien Cubed?
I think it's just like a symptom of their inept advertising of this movie and sort of general studio mismanagement, actually.
I think you're probably right, but we will talk all about that in that section. We're going to review Alien Cubed. It's going to be a full spoilers review, of course, as we dive into that movie and talk about its director a little bit. And then we're going to very briefly go through some of the most anticipated films of 2020 and see if we can figure out what kind of year in movies this is going to be. That's going to be interesting, Matt, because I looked at the list and I don't know how excited I am.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few that I can say I'm excited about. But
sure, but less than I want there to be.
True.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about David Fincher. And because this is our first episode, Matt, before we get into Alien 3, I want to just talk about Fincher generally. I want to kind of just go over what we know of his style, what we know about this guy going in. One of the things that I think is really big and kind of a first-time thing for the show is David Fincher is not a writer. In the past, we've selected movies or directors rather that were kind of the auteur director, right? They were writer/directors. M. Night Shyamalan, the Wachowski sisters, with a couple exceptions, basically directed everything that they wrote, or rather wrote everything that they directed. Fincher is not like that. None of these 10 movies we're going to be talking about for David Fincher are movies that he himself wrote. But I think he is such a stylistic director. He has such a distinct style that I think it's still going to be interesting diving into these movies. And I do think the plots of these movies still do matter because I think it tells us about Fincher, what types of movies he chooses to attach himself to.
I mean, most of them are sort of dark. And, you know, one thing that we discovered, especially going through Shyamalan, is that he tells thematically similar stories, even though the stories can be quite different in many ways. They often have the same themes. I wonder if we're going to discover as we go through this that Fincher isn't attracted to certain thematic ideas or perhaps ideas about humanity or something like that. Like, I just feel like that's true, even though I haven't really thought about it and studied it yet. I feel like that's something we're going to discover as we go, though. Yeah,
I mean, going off the top of my head, this movie, Seven, Zodiac, even Fight Club to a certain extent, these are very much movies. I don't want to go nihilistic. That's probably too tough of a term. But they are very bleak. They have like a not great view of humanity. But I think he is saying something very specific in them, and how or what movies he chooses to. So yeah, we're going to be a little different. I think we're going to have to maybe focus on the scripts themselves a little less than we did for Shyamalan and for the Wachowskis. But I still want to talk about the stories of these films because stories are like what we talk about. We love talking about the writing, so I really want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I agree.
But one of the things, I mean, when I think David Fincher, one of the things I think is very meticulous filmmaking. He is known as and I think meticulous in the world of film is like a nice way of saying he's kind of an asshole. And by that what I mean is he is one of those directors that is going to do it until he's happy with it. So he is one of those he's not going to go in there with a couple takes. He's going to sit there with the actors and make them do it over and over and over again until he's happy. He very much sets up all his shots. I think he storyboards just about everything out. He is very, very attached and involved with the director of photography. He's just that kind of director. I think Shyamalan was an actor's director, kind of. I think Fincher gets very good performances out of his actors. I don't want to say that, but I don't think he's an actor's director in that he's going to make you feel all warm and fuzzy. He's going to really put you through the ringer to get what he wants out of you for these movies.
Yeah, I think that they probably have very different approaches to I think both of these filmmakers are very meticulous people, but I have this sense, and this is something that I look forward to, either learning that I was right or learning that maybe I am oversimplifying. But my sense of Fincher is that he cuts a lot. Like he like what Shyamalan might do in one shot, Fincher will do in 43. And he's almost telling little short stories with his choices of what objects in the scene he's focusing on and things like this. Yeah. And I think we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about that when we talk about Alien 3. But it's very interesting how, like, I consider Shyamalan to have a lot of control over what he's doing with the camera and what's in the frame and so forth. But Fincher just does that in a different direction, where he's almost micromanaging, but in a way that isn't intrusive.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it, actually. I really like that. Mm-hmm. And I totally agree. I mean, I think one of the things when I think Fincher the most, I think of his conversation filmmaking. Like, he is one of those directors that can film a conversation in really interesting ways. Like, a lot of directors, you know, if two characters are talking, you'll just do those medium over the shoulder shots, right? And it's just back and forth, cutting back and forth between those two, and then maybe you'll cut to a medium in between, and those are your three shots for the conversation. Fincher doesn't do that. He is all over the place, and each one of his cuts is doing something, is conveying something, and I'm really excited to talk about that. And I think we see the early makings of that in this movie, actually. So I look forward to kind of breaking those down with you and seeing how that changes and evolves as we go. But I mean, Zodiac is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I cannot wait till we get to talk about that movie. And the scene in that movie that everyone remembers is when they're interviewing the guy they suspect to be the Zodiac killer. And it's literally just three people in a room talking. And it is some of the most kinetic, amazing filmmaking I've ever seen. So I can't wait to talk about that movie. Yeah,
I agree completely. I mean, I think one thing I'll say about this movie is that I actually sort of like that it's not a perfect movie, Alien 3, because with Shyamalan, he starts out with The Sixth Sense, right? And you're like, okay, well, this is a extremely assured and skillful director already, whereas Alien 3 has some issues, which, if anything, kind of allow you to see, yes, I see where this filmmaker is going to turn into the David Fincher that we know today, but he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I do think it is funny that with both the Wachowskis and with Shyamalan, they like burst onto the scene with this movie that was just them. Mm-hmm. Like, Sixth Sense is Shyamalan, and I think that remains my favorite Shyamalan movie. Wow, what was I just blanked on the Wachowskis?
Well, Bound was the first, which is great, and then The Matrix is where literally their second movie, and it's you know.
But Bound was just like a Wachowski movie, right? I mean, that is everything that they do is in that one movie. And yeah, Fincher had a little bit of a different journey. He starts off making music videos. He was a music video director for a very long time in the 80s. He did a lot of music videos in the 80s. And then this very troubled production of Alien 3 tapped him to come do this. and we try not to bring in, outside the film stuff. But one thing I do know for a fact before I even sat down to watch this movie is Fincher had a really terrible time with this movie. He hated it. He hates the movie. He is embarrassed by the movie. And I think he's overly critical, and we'll get into that. But this almost made him give up on becoming a feature-length film director. After this movie, he went back to music videos, and it wasn't until someone asked him to do Seven that he was like, okay, I want to mess with the studios again, because he had just a miserable time with this movie. So that's another thing when we really start talking about this movie. It is going to be, I think, very hard for us to break down what is a David Fincher choice and what is this is the studio mandating what it wants this movie to be.
Yeah, and I think we both watched the theatrical cut for this conversation.
Correct.
Yeah, which, I mean, we could have done a thing where we watch like both versions, like, because there's a director's cut, isn't there?
Well, it's called an assembly cut.
Yes.
That's kind of why, if it had been called a director's cut, I probably would have said, let's watch that. But it was part of the Alien Anthology series released in 2003. And Fincher is the only director that didn't give his sign off on that because he hates this movie and doesn't want anything to do with it. So I think like it probably has more of his vision in it, but the fact that like he didn't bless it makes me kind of want to just be like, maybe let's stay away from that. I like it better. I think it is better. I've seen it before. It's been a while, so I'm not comfortable like talking about it expertly, but I do like the assembly cut better. It focuses on some more stuff. It focuses on the religion aspects a little bit more. I think it's a better movie, but yeah, we didn't want to. Plus, it's not as widely available, so we didn't want to focus on that.
Yeah, and I mean, like as you say, even if we had watched both versions, what could we really draw from that other than saying, well, okay, I guess this one specific choice is definitely Fincher.
Right, yeah.
But as it is, I think we can still say a lot about this.
Sure. All right. Is that all you wanted to say about Fincher generally? You ready to move into Alien 3?
Yeah, I think so for now. I mean, we'll have plenty of time to talk about David Fincher.
Nah, I think we're going to run out of time. Yeah, no. So let's do it. Let's talk about Alien 3.
Was there an alien on board?
Yes. There's definitely something in here with us.
We have no weapons of any kind.
Let's start.
It's here!
So this is a rough one for me, Matt. It was not a well-received movie. Fincher hates it, and he's not the only one. A lot of people didn't like this movie. My memory of this movie is it was 1992. I was 7 years old. My dad loved Aliens. I know my dad loved Aliens. I watched Aliens with my dad when I was like 6, and he went to the theater to see this movie, and he came back, and he was pissed off. And the one thing I said, I remember this so distinctly in my mind. I was like, Dad, how was the movie? And he goes, this is awful. They killed everybody. And they did.
Yeah.
I mean, they kill like both Newt and Hicks and Bishop die in the opening of this movie. And then of course Ripley is gone by the end of it. So like Aliens is like my dad's favorite movie, and they, in his mind, they made it pointless because they all die anyway. And he was very, very upset with that. And I was too for a very long time, Matt. But as an adult who's trying to appreciate this movie on another level, the balls that it takes to make that choice is amazing to me.
It's almost comedic. Like having known that this was what happened in the movie for, most of my life and having seen it a long time ago, I just kind of accepted like, okay, yeah, this is the one where they start out the movie and these characters are dead. But like, if you just accept that that's the case, it's actually almost funny how they're like just rapid fire killing everyone off, and like because the movie is not trying to like entertain you in the same way as Aliens. And I think I think that's the thing, is this is one of those sequels where almost guaranteed to piss off the people who liked the movie prior to it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
It's probably it's more similar to Alien in terms of its tone, I would say, of just like, it's gonna kill you, nothing you can do, you know, just kind of, it's an unstoppable monster. And I mean, they do manage to kill it, obviously, but at tremendous cost. And then everyone who survives almost is killed by the people at the end. And it's just so cynical and not aiming for you to walk out of the theater going, oh, that was awesome. You're just like, still though, like I actually think I love it. That's what's funny is I remember this movie being unwatchable somehow. And then I watched it again this week and I was like, oh, this is great. Like there's a distinct point in the movie where it suddenly becomes very difficult to follow. But that point is like 20 minutes away from the end. Like up until that, it's great.
Yeah. This movie whips ass, man.
Yeah.
Like I am right with you on this. I remember hating this movie. I remember being very negative about this movie, and I remember being one of those people that's like, oh, you gotta watch the assembly cut. The assembly cut is what saves it, and that's what everyone loves. But no, this movie's a lot of fun, and it does have some problems. I think we're going to get into a lot of the problems with it, but I don't know. There's a lot of really interesting things going on here, and I respect the fuck out of it. Like, imagine in 2019 this movie being made. It would not happen. The choice to like, no, you can't kill off the little girl. You can't show a scene of her with her hands out screaming in the tube. And I love in the movie, like, they say that she probably wasn't conscious when she drowned to death. And I'm like, I beg to differ, movie, because I saw the shot of her with her hands like open and like in this open and her mouth open in this scream as if she's like beating her hands against the side of the thing. It's like, this movie is not fucking around on any level. And it is like just the cojones to make those choices. I respect so much.
Well, the intro to the movie is a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like flashes that last like maybe 1 second or less between sort of the intro title card, the producer and all that crap. It's just like like you just said, like a flash of Newt dying, a flash of Hicks being like disintegrated by a falling pylon or whatever.
Yeah,
like you don't
horribly
even
impaled. Like his whole upper body, like
and
like
you don't even get time
vaporized.
to like process what you're looking at. You just see like. You basically, I mean, this is kind of how I think he's a master of filmmaking already at this point in a certain sense, is he's able to tell these little like short stories that last like a handful of frames practically, where your brain had enough time to process that was one of the cryotubes being smashed brutally and someone dying. And then back to the black. And we cut to the next thing, back to the black, cut to the next thing. Like you see one, a few frames that suggest a face hugger is there, back to the black, right? Like he's telling this story with, I mean, they could practically be still images, right? But they're not. And he does this a lot actually, where he'll sort of tell a little short story with just his like fast cutting camera movements. I'll talk about that again when we talk about the autopsy scene, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And one of the things that I probably knew about this before, but the opening Fox fanfare, like in the middle of that classic fanfare, suddenly morphs into the score of this movie. And it's this like horror story. And like it's this perfect way of getting you ready for what you're about to watch, because this is not the fuck yeah Marines movie of aliens. This is not even like, it is similar in tone to Alien, but I think it's something different. Like in Alien, I felt like it's the unknowable cosmic, like Lovecraftian kind of horror thing. In this, because of the design of the alien, because of the dog nature of the alien, it is much more, they're trying to corral this animal, and there's multiple ticking clocks, right? There's the Ripley has the alien inside her ticking clock. There's the bad guys, the real truly bad guys are the Weyland-Yutani Corporation that's coming, and we know if they get here before we've killed the alien, they're going to take it away, and that'll be a disaster. So they're the antagonist. The alien is much more of just an animal here. And that's so interesting to me, and it makes it, to me, it makes everything so much more dire, right? Like
Yeah.
like everything is bad. She's stuck on this planet with some of the worst human beings in the world. Like they found religion, and we're gonna have a lot to say about that because hey, I think Ripley's Jesus, but we're like they're all bad, they're all terrible, they're all sinners. The company is horrible. This alien's trying to kill. There's no hope. Like winning in this case is dying. That like the victory moment is your main character dying.
Right.
And it is just a completely bleak movie through and through. It is not entertaining in that way at all.
Well, and everything is like dirty and shitty constantly. I feel like the direction for like the costuming and makeup was just like, I want everybody in this movie to constantly look like shit.
Yeah.
Like and the setting of course is the same, but like I mean, so think about the last two movies. Like in the first movie, Sigourney Weaver is this beautiful young woman. In the second movie, Sigourney Weaver is this beautiful woman. In this movie, she has like a fucked up eye for half the movie.
Yeah.
And then they shave her head and just like they do everything. And then they dress her in like this brown smock. Like they do everything they can to remove any sort of like visual relief, if you will, from the images. Like there's no point in this movie where you're like, oh, that's kind of nice. I guess the only like reprieve in the movie is when her and Charles Dance hook up and you're like, oh, something good happened.
But then they fucking kill him.
And they kill him immediately. Yeah, right. Like immediately. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Good point.
I had forgotten that happened, that Charles Dance's character just dies halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And it was a legitimate shock for me in that moment. I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, I'm trying to figure a way to structure this because that's one of the things I think the movie struggles with is that the characters around Ripley just kind of come in and go out in weird ways. Like Charles Dance's character dies halfway through, and then Dylan, the Charles Dutton character, the guy with glasses, kind of steps up and fills the Ripley sidekick role. And it's just it doesn't quite work for me. Like I think his character should have been established a little bit earlier. Like the structure of this movie is kind of weird in that regard. Like that, like the way they're trying, I think, to do like one of the things I think that both of the previous Alien films do really well is give you this base level understanding of these characters very quickly. Like everyone in Aliens is so well characterized before they even get to the planet. Same thing in Alien when you really get to understand every member of this crew. And I think that's what they were trying to do with these characters. But like with the exception of Dylan, Clemens, and I forget the name of the guy who survives at the end.
Yeah. I don't know any of their names either.
Those were the only, and then of course 85, but those are the only ones that really get characterized in any kind of way. And I don't know. I just think that's one of the ways in which the movie struggled to me.
Yeah, I think so. And that's, I think this is one thing that's going to be interesting in this series is that to me is just very clearly script problems.
Yeah.
And thus not really Fincher's fault. Although it is interesting to consider. I mean, if we're going to be going through this kind of thing, like when you're a director and you're making a movie and you suddenly realize like, oh, you know what, this element of the story is not coming together because we haven't established this character very well. Like you don't really have the option. Like you could change the script, I guess, but are like is that done? I don't actually know. And
I mean, changes are made during filming all the time. Fincher, as I understand it, was involved in making script changes. They started filming this movie before the script was done.
That makes sense.
And yeah, the production of this movie is a fucking disaster. So one of the weird things is the only way Sigourney Weaver would do it is if two of the screenplay writers, David Giler and Walter Hill, were on as writers because she felt that they were the only ones that really understood her character, because she was actually really mad at Cameron and everyone involved in Aliens because they cut all the scenes that established the entire mother theme.
Right.
Like all that stuff was cut and she was super pissed off about it. And so she didn't want to come back and do another movie because she felt they betrayed the character and the point of the film. And the way they convinced her was to have these two specific guys come in and write this movie. They were actually the producers. of the film. And so I think like there's so much there were like 6 different scripts for this movie. They never really got it down. The producers ended up taking 2 different scripts and kind of banging them together to make this movie. It's such a disaster, and that's one of the reasons why Fincher struggled with it so much, is because he was trying to go in and kind of form a movie out of this mangled mess of a script, and the studio was pushing back against him. Like the movie had spent $7 million before production started. Like,
wow.
Before they even started rolling camera. So the studio was just on his ass the entire movie. You have to go, you have to be fast, you have to be efficient. We got to get this movie done.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the Alien franchise sort of is a massive Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a tangent, but at one point, I think you can probably find this online still. Like, there were like several spec scripts, or maybe the opposite of spec scripts, whatever. There were several scripts written for Alien 4, actually, by different like high profile writers who you would have heard of. And I think I went and I read all of them at one point because I was curious to see what other visions there were. And it's so wild, like what different takes people will have.
Yeah.
I think one of them was actually David Twohy, the guy behind Riddick. And, and that's he basically just made Riddick versus the Alien, except it's not Riddick. Absolutely, that's what it is. It's like a whatever. You know exactly what I mean. You pictured the movie in your head as soon as I said it. Do you remember when Neil Blomkamp was going to make a sequel to Aliens? I do. That just ignores this movie entirely. God, so funny. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's, I guess I only bring up the idea of the franchise to say that like this, it's such a, it's just a scary monster, go. Right. Like you can do whatever you want with it. And that ends up being kind of a problem sometimes. And I think so many people have different ideas of what Alien is actually about and what the franchise is actually about, that there can be a lot of like butting heads and not seeing eye to eye, or just like people make this movie and then people like, frankly, you and me and your dad and most people walk into it and we're like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is directly insulting to my vision of what this is because I love Aliens so much. Yeah. And I mean, the one thing that I think this movie does, and the one thing that I think Fincher understands fundamentally, is the Ripley character. Because I think this movie, and it's through what you were talking about, through the set dressing and through the makeup and the character work, it understands that Ellen Ripley has gone through fucking hell. And it understands what a character would be like after 2 instances of this, of you barely survive this thing only to find out your daughter's dead. You go back to make sure it never happens again, and bad stuff happens again. And the people you saved, the girl you went back for, dies. Who are you at the end of that? What are you? And it really understands, and it lets that. Like, I think this is where we can get into the autopsy scene, because I think this is some of the most powerful filmmaking in this movie. Sure. Where Ripley is both mourning Newt, this surrogate daughter that she's basically adopted and risked everything for in the last movie, but at the same time she's needing to do this autopsy to make sure that the alien's gone. And it's this such complicated cocktail of emotion feeling its way through the scene, and Fincher films it so incredibly. I mean, this is the autopsy of a 12-year-old girl's body, and it is horrifying without barely showing anything, right? Like that's the remarkable part about this, is Fincher doesn't really show any of the autopsy itself. It's just the way he cuts. Like the guy will pick up the chest saw and you'll hear the scraping noises, and then he'll drop it on the tray, and it'll be an insert shot cut to it dropping on the tray with like a fresh thing of blood on it that kind of seeps into the water, the standing water at the bottom of the tray. And it's just so effectively horrifying. Yeah, right. Like it's weirdly restrained for being a horror movie. Like you could just show it, right? You could just show all of it. But the fact that he cuts away from it, or kind of like, if he's going to show the body, he's going to show it kind of at an angle where you can kind of see the outline of the body, but mainly you're looking at Ripley and seeing her reaction, which is always going to be more dramatic anyway. Or like at most you'll get like kind of a very quick flash of the organs or what have you. Well, I think that's a very specific cut too, because the only time we see any of it is when he opens the chest and we check where the alien would be. Yeah. And that's because I think
the camera is almost emulating Ripley in this. She doesn't want to look at this. She doesn't want to look at any of this, but she has to. And so she's not going to look until she absolutely has to look, because that's the goal of this. And so that's the only time we see it, is when she would actually look. And I think that's such a powerful technique to convey the emotion of this scene.
There was one thing I noticed about that scene, which I don't know if it was intentional, but in any case, his kind of apron has like this huge smear of blood on the front of it. Then so the main things it's cutting between is him, Ripley's face, the tray of tools, and occasionally quick cuts to the body. And okay, so he's got this huge smear of blood on his chest. Ripley has this bloody, messed up eye, which is like a flash of red in the middle of the frame, basically. And then the tray of tools constantly has blood on it. And of course, the body has blood on it. So like everything it's cutting between has some amount of red blood in the shot.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's such a good shot. It's so powerful. There's also something he's doing with the sound here that I noticed the first time, because I was listening on my new sound system and my speakers were cranked up. But it's like I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. It's almost like a cutting noise, just overlaid in the background. Because when I first heard it, I thought it was like a sawing noise of him sawing and cutting at the body, but it wasn't. It's just overlaid over the background of this entire scene. This just like this metal on surface noise in the background. And I don't think I've ever noticed that, but I think it almost subconsciously adds to the tension of the scene, where you just hear like this is a body being mutilated, basically, scientifically, of course, but it's just this like disturbing sawing sound that's like cutting into the scene as we're cutting into Newt. I don't know. I'd never noticed that before, and it's really effective.
Yeah, the sound design in the whole movie is fantastic. Almost to the point where I don't know where to start. Like there are a lot of scenes where it's very like there's a very loud, kind of disturbing and aggressive background sound. Like the first scene when they when they open up the escape pod, like you sort of can't even hear what the people are saying. It's so like the wind is so loud.
Yeah.
There's the scene in the air tunnel where the fan is blowing and the guy is singing, and it's just this like cacophony. It's just like horrible. Like the sound design is often like as unpleasant as the visual aesthetic.
Yeah,
where you're just like, oh, this is just unpleasant.
And in that scene, he's cleaning the tunnel, right? And he's cleaning the tunnel with like a metal shovel. And so it's literally him scraping the sides of a tunnel with metal. And it's so, it hurt. Yeah. Every time he did that, it hurt my ears. I think you're right. Every sound in this is meant to be unpleasant. Like, it's no wonder that people do not like this movie. It's designed to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, just the dripping and scraping and loudness, and I don't know what it is about like there's some particular quality to just the frequency of the droning of the fan and the blowing of the wind at the beginning, because like wind doesn't sound that way, right? It's a particular sound that they have crafted to be upsetting.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just and every little thing, like the sounds the doors make are just this very like satisfying and tactile physical sound, which is what you really want, because obviously in real life, like that's one thing that's so easy to forget when you're thinking about movies, is that these things never make the sounds that they make in the movie. Like I'm sure these doors in real life are made of like not metal, and so they probably don't sound anything like that. So they have to, fabricate some awesome sound. And that's all a directorial decision, right? Yeah.
I mean, obviously he had sound people making the sounds, but those are sounds that he's approving and putting in and kind of directing. Like those are decisions that Fincher is making, and I think they serve to enhance the movie in so many ways. I think it was Roger Ebert. I'm not sure on this quote, but I think he said, "This is the best looking bad movie I've ever seen." And it's because it really is. Like this movie is gorgeous is the wrong word, because it's gorgeous in how awful it looks.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and sounds and feels.
Yeah, it's reminiscent. I was gonna say like it reminds me of Seven. Then I was like, it kind of reminds me of all of his movies, where it's just so perfect in what it's doing that you enjoy the miserableness of it.
Sure.
I don't know how to. I don't like. There's got to be a word for this emotion of just like, oh, this sucks. I love it. But that's absolutely what you're feeling, you know. And yeah, I don't know if we're moving through this linearly or what exactly, but
we're doing whatever we want. You go for it, man.
Yeah, just the idea that like at a certain point when things become incoherent and hard to follow and kind of repetitive when they're trying to corral the alien through the tunnels, that's about when the movie lost me. As you know, I started thinking like, okay, we're clearly making some like unforced errors here in terms of how we have chosen to do this, and like needed a better way to kill off some of these people so it wasn't the same thing over and over, and it's kind of whatever. It's not great. It's probably a lot to do with the script. It's probably a lot to do with other production issues.
Yeah, and I don't sorry, I don't want to derail you, but
Yeah.
I agree with you that that's the weakest part of the movie, but I think there are so many fun decisions made there. I love the point of view shot decision, and I think that was probably just an economical one because let's be honest here, the CG alien does not work.
No.
It does not work. It is awful. It is legitimately awful, and it comes very close to ruining the movie.
Yeah.
Every time they cut to a shot that's CG, it's just like, God, that is bad.
It's almost made worse. Like the scene where it kills Charles Dance. That's basically what's, you know, animatronic or suit or whatever. Close-ups, looks awesome, looks perfect. Ripley runs away. Like this should be a fantastic scene, but then between the time that it kills Charles Dance and then it like walks across the floor to her, it's the CGI version, and it looks awful. It looks like a cartoon, and then you go back to the suit or the puppet or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and you're just like, well, yep, that's fake. I know this is fake because I just saw how fake it was, and it's absolutely not the same object that I just saw a second ago. Like the fact that you switched between the two made it even more obvious.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part, right? I mean, I think this is very symptomatic of like early CG experimentation, and you can almost see this as this movie came out a year after T2, and you can almost see this as the studio being like, look they did the CG stuff, we got to do that, you got to get that in, that's the new hotness, and obviously they could not achieve as good of an effect, but the interesting design choice in this movie, I think, is to kind of build the alien based off of the thing that it's a host of, right?
Yeah.
This is something new to the series we had never seen. It gets inside of a dog, and so the alien is much more dog-like. And that's really cool and interesting, and I actually like that a lot. But the suits that they use are the same suits from the other movies. So you cut between the awful-looking CGI of the dog-looking alien to what just looks like a normal xenomorph, not like that at all. And it just, that even helps make it even look worse. Like that accentuates the disconnect there on the CG for me.
Yeah, I mean, it even seems to be kind of standing up behind Charles Dance, and you're like, how is it doesn't have those proportions? But
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is all probably the kind of thing that really bothered David Fincher. And honestly, like,
I'm sure it did. Yeah.
As you were saying, like early days, they probably hadn't figured out their kind of workflow of being like, you know, getting feedback between what the shot was going to look like and then what the CGI thing was going to look like in the scene.
Yeah,
having all that work and come together.
There are some eyeline issues I noticed where they're looking in a place they shouldn't. There's one scene where a guy walks up to where the CG alien is killing someone else, and his reaction time is like way too slow.
Yeah,
like he's halfway into the room before he sees this very well lit, obvious alien eating this guy.
Yeah,
and it's just like, yeah, you would have ran like a long time ago, buddy. But I think they just hadn't quite got nailed on at least that half of the take. They hadn't nailed down where it's going to be and what it's going to be doing yet, and so they really just had to mold it together. Yeah, I think that's the movie looks weakest when it's kind of clearly working around this technology that they're barely understanding yet.
But some of it, you know, when they're sticking more to the practical effects, I think there's actually a lot of great moments. Like the moment
I agree, yeah.
The moment when it comes up to her and you know, kind of smells her or whatever is really it's sort of an iconic moment of the Aliens franchise, even though I mean, most people don't like this movie. I think you know, maybe unfortunately that's true, but that's a great moment. Like on every level. I think the moment when it like grabs a guy, pulls him up, like rips his head half off, and then like a gallon of blood falls down on the guy below him and just splatters his face. It was just this beautifully shocking, horrible moment where I was just like, damn, like it takes a lot to shock you these days, but I thought that was executed so well to just be like horrifying, right?
Yeah, and I think they like, you know, the Fincher understood in the shots where they had the practical thing that you had to be kind of creative with it, and so like it became this game of kind of like the rapid cutting from the beginning of the movie where they're cutting back and forth between blackness and these horrifying moments. They cut around the suit very intelligently. It just looked good. It looked exciting and tense every time we're cutting like around the attacking, because we really can't show it flat straight on yet.
Yeah, I thought that was actually really interesting how a lot of the time the alien will kind of be like pounced on someone and like tearing them apart, but due to the darkness and the shadows and the distance of the shot, you can't really see what it's doing.
Yeah,
and that actually makes it scarier.
Yeah, I don't think you need to. And I think that with our modern technology, like remake this movie in 2019, we have modern day CGI. The whole thing would be CG, and they would have gone to town with it.
Yeah, right. We'd have these long, steady, well lit shots, which would just totally not be scary at all.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Dylan a little bit. I have a lot of qualms with the script. I think the way it introduces Dylan, or the way he kind of steps into the movie, is a very good one, because it is the funeral for Newt and Hicks, right? And the administrator of the prison he's got his Bible open and he's reading, and he finishes. He's the one in charge, and he finishes. And then suddenly Dylan steps up and starts giving a sermon, basically, and it basically is a show don't tell way of the movie to show you who exactly is really in charge here.
Yeah.
Because he kind of steps up and fills in and gives this beautifully eloquent speech that Fincher wonderfully crosscuts with the alien being birthed, like this dichotomy of birth and death, and it kind of matches perfectly to the speech Dylan is giving, like, for every death there is new life. And of course, because the movie is nihilistic a little bit, that new life happens to be another alien.
Right.
Yay. But I love the crosscuts there. It's really, really effective. But it just establishes this character in a really interesting way. And then the script kind of, it's not that it undercuts it, but I love it when she goes and thanks him for that speech, and he's like, "Lady, you don't want to know me. Like I rape and murder people." And it's just like this reminder that none of these people are good people. They're all bad people that have done terrible things.
Yeah.
But even they can still serve a purpose, can still do something in the end.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is clearly trying to do good in his own way at this point. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you would phrase that as like make amends exactly, but he's I mean, it's an interesting and believable character, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is why Ripley is Jesus, because she lands on this planet of sinners, and she comes there to take their sin away, and that's precisely what she does.
Yeah.
The movie is not subtle with its Christ imagery. I mean, the moment where she asks Dylan to kill her, she's literally got her hands out to her side, like in the sign of the cross, as she's waiting for him to land the killing blow. Like, it is not subtle, but I don't know. Like, that doesn't make it bad, right? Like, I think that's a really interesting way to take this. It's an interesting twist on this whole alien idea.
I'm going to be honest, it didn't occur to me until you pointed it out, and now that you have, of course, it seems obvious. So if it's subtle enough that I didn't notice it, then I think it's not bad.
Cool.
But yeah, I think it's absolutely present.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have heavy religious themes in here. And I mean, interestingly, you could argue that the Alien franchise is now sort of dominated by religious themes. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we've got Covenant, we've got Prometheus.
Yeah, and that is all about basically creation myth, right?
It's all this with a like literal reference to like, oh well, they rejected Jesus and so we sent bioweapons to their planet. Like,
God, I forgot that was the plot line.
yeah,
Jesus was an alien, and we killed him, and therefore we
Right.
deserve. God, Prometheus is stupid.
yeah, and I mean the name of covenant is covenant, so like,
Yeah, true.
it's easy there. But it's funny because I never thought Alien had religious undertones, but maybe they're there too. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Like there is I. The first one maybe the first one, like there's so many conversations about what the themes and the imagery in the first one is. Like there's this very big idea of like sexual violation of men, right? Like that's one of the big themes of Alien, and that's like apparently like men freak out at the chest burster scene like way more than women, because it's like I don't know, there's some like I forget, I watched a whole documentary on it. It's actually worth watching, but the second movie is definitely about like motherhood, like that is, especially if you watch the director's cut, which is the one that they should have released, because how do you cut that stuff anyway? I think so. I don't think it really got into this stuff until this movie, and then I think it just kind of doubled down on it. I think Ridley Scott saw something in Prometheus and Covenant that he liked in that religious imagery. But yeah, I mean, I think and I think the reason probably why I caught it and you didn't in this movie is because I think the assembly cut leans into it a little bit more, and I have memories from that, so I recognize the imagery here. But yeah, I mean, it's I like it. It's interesting. I think it's a good place to take Ripley.
Yeah, sure. Sure. It's especially once you make the decision that you're going to kill her, you have to, or at least you now have access to all of the imagery of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that just kind of dovetails with Christian imagery really well.
Sure. And I will say, like, I still think that the final shot of her diving into diving backwards, by the way, holding her hands out to the side and the sign of a cross, as she jumps off the platform, and then as she's falling, the thing bursts out of her stomach and she grabs it as if to make sure she's taking it with her, as if she's making sure to take that sin with her.
Right.
I think that is a perfect image. I really do. I really, really like that whole shot. Like, Fincher films it from above. We see her from above falling. I really love it.
Yeah, me too. I agree. It being the same actor as Bishop is a slightly false note to me, but like everything else about the scene is great.
That was an interesting choice. I kind of agree with you on that.
I don't understand how the scientist who made Bishop looks just like Bishop, even though he's clearly like he should be older, right? He should be a lot older potentially. I don't know. Like that's the kind of stupid thing that I get hung up on that I probably shouldn't.
Sure. I mean, I like the insidiousness of it.
Yeah.
Like, that they were really going to try to manipulate her by bringing this guy out.
Yeah, I do like that he's like charming. He's like, he basically behaves like Bishop, but then and then it actually kind of gets under your skin a little bit, because you're like, but he's not Bishop. It's a trick, and then he reveals before the end like he was lying the whole time. So yeah, sure. It's very, very skeezy, and I love it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's one thing that he was doing with the camera fairly often in this movie, like very often actually, which was just pointing upward. Yeah. It's like very, like, it's almost, I want to say too much. I don't know what that means exactly, but like the first scene where you're talking to the prisoners, or the warden is talking to the prisoners, like it's almost like a 45-degree angle upward the entire scene. Like, no matter where the camera is, it's down low, like below the level of where they're standing, looking up at them. And then this is a I don't know, a motif, a thing that he does very, very consistently.
It's basically the entire movie, almost.
It's almost the entire movie. I mean, even when you're just at like a very close range shot of like people sitting across from a table at each other, it's still like the camera is like at the level of their chest or their elbow, looking up at them. And I was wondering if like there's a reason for that you know of, other than to create like an effect of making you feel small, maybe, or maybe make you feel like you're at a disadvantage or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like basically, I haven't like I noticed that as well, and I hadn't worked through it. So let's kind of work through this live because
Okay.
I think it is interesting. And I mean, the biggest effect that does is someone fills the frame more. They take up more of the frame. They seem bigger. It makes them look more powerful. Like it makes sense to do it. Like it would not have surprised me if it did it for just Ripley, right? Because it's trying to like build this Ripley as Messiah metaphor. So that makes a lot of sense. But you're right that it does it for everyone else, and so we look small. I mean, one of the other things that I think it does is kind of match the point of view of the alien.
Yeah.
The alien is smaller in this, well, when it's the dog version, not when it's the guy in the suit version, it is smaller. It is lower to the ground. It runs on 4 legs. So we're kind of always from that alien point of view looking up at the bigger humans. And that's interesting because normally you would say, well, that the effect there is that the humans are more powerful than the thing. But I didn't feel that way. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, like I kind of mentioned a second ago, I was thinking maybe it's meant to be like, well, you were sort of subliminally in the scene where the camera is, and if you're always small, you're always smaller than everyone, then you're just gonna you personally are gonna feel small and powerless, and like you're in a scary and like you're in a situation that's out of your control. So that's one possibility, and another possibility I thought of, which was particularly salient when there's scenes where like people are looking around for the alien, which is kind of the 4th act. I'm not sure exactly. It's toward the end of the movie, toward the latter half of the movie. They're hunting around for it, and what you would want, like what your brain wants, is like a high altitude over the shoulder point of view shot, so that you can see the character and everything around them. And of course, they give you the opposite of that, where you can't see what the character is seeing. You can't see what's in front of them. You can't really see what could be sneaking up from behind them either. You just kind of see like the ceiling over their head, which is useless. And it gives you this sense of like you're just watching them walk into death with no control, no forewarning.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a good point. It shrinks the frame almost because so much of the frame is filled by useless, either the actor themselves or just useless information like the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like who cares about what's on the ceiling? Unless the alien happens to be up there, which Fincher does use that.
Which it sometimes is, but like never in a way where it gives you any relief.
Yeah.
Like it usually doesn't do the dramatic irony thing that you have in some alien movies where you where you see the alien but the character doesn't. Sometimes it does, but not usually. The character is finding it at the same time you're finding it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I like that a lot because it does kind of shrink the frame. You never get these wide angled shots that allows you to see a lot of, and I think that is what both enhances and confuses the third act that you're talking about. The real confusion of their plan to kind of funnel it into this particular chamber. You do kind of lose track of what's going on there. Like, where is the alien compared to where they're running? Like, the geography of the scene is very confusing, and like the Fincher lover in me wants to say, yeah, that's on purpose. Like he wants you to feel lost and confused. We don't know where the alien is. We don't know where the objective is. We don't know, is that person running the right way? Are they getting it closer to the place they want it to get to? And then he continues to cut back to the Weyland-Yutani people like slowly landing on the planet and walking, and then we cut back to this maze and we're like, are they close? I don't know. I legitimately don't know if they're close to accomplishing their objective. And that is both inherently unsatisfying and maybe exactly what he wanted you to feel.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's not completely awful. It just, I mean, I guess that's the thing is maybe you're right. Like when I say like, oh yeah, it really loses me because you completely lose track of where you are, and then your response would be, well, maybe he wants you to lose track of where you are so you feel as disoriented as maybe these characters do. It would help if I cared about the characters more because I think actually my complaint about that part of the movie has less to do with the fact that you're disoriented and more to do with the fact that it's like 3 successive people whose names you don't know getting killed, and you're just like, okay, I get it.
I will admit that the deaths did get kind of boring for me. It's like they realized at the end they had like 12 people and we need to get down to one.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna. And I think the thing that there's moments where it's really good though, because like when it all starts, like the first time it starts because you just hear someone screaming. You don't even see them die.
Yeah.
You just hear a person scream, and I kind of wish it did more of that. I almost wish Fincher like stuck the camera on Dylan and Sigourney Weaver on Ripley and didn't leave them, and like we just heard and like maybe saw people die. Like imagine, like, because I think the set's really cool, right? They're in this like narrow tunnel and there are doors there are like 6 or 8 doors on either side, and there's moments when like Fincher will show the alien like run across the hallway real quick, and unfortunately it's terrible because of CGI, but like the shot is interesting.
Yeah.
And imagine if you were like stuck on the characters just waiting in here and you're hearing people scream, like you're seeing people run through the hallway, like shutting other doors, trying to corral it, and you don't know what's going on, but you're hearing people die. Like that would make you feel confused and overwhelmed and weak without like repetitive, oh, who is this nameless guy that's dead?
Yeah. I think I agree. I'm even thinking of like tweaks you could do to that, where you could still maybe show a couple of the deaths.
Sure. Yeah.
But keep the main idea, because I mean, I don't know, that's kind of my thing, to the point that I get repetitive with it, is like we can only really feel things through the characters, and if we don't care about the characters, then our ability to feel is greatly reduced. So
yeah,
sticking a character we care about in the scene is obviously the better choice if you have that option. And I think that would have been the way to go.
Yeah.
It's possible they were just like, no, we need as many brutal deaths as possible, and you have to show them.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't put it past them.
Oh, I think the compromise here is when you cut away from Ripley and Dylan, only cut to the alien point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Don't show anything else in those tunnels besides the alien POV, and you can still get away with showing the deaths in there, but it's equally disorienting because you don't know where it is, but you're just seeing it kill people.
Yeah,
I think that's a good solution.
I think I like that. I like how the alien goes on the ceiling sometimes, and
yeah,
the movie almost doesn't make anything of it. It's just like it kind of rolls around to the ceiling, and you're like, oh, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about 85.
Sure.
The poor guy with an IQ of 85. I thought he's kind of being set up to be like the Lieutenant Gorman character of this movie. For those of you that don't remember, Gorman is the suit in Aliens who is like the never done a combat drop lieutenant that's supposed to be leading this squad, and he's like the weakling that doesn't understand the importance or the seriousness of what's going on, but he gets this kind of awesome redemption arc by the end of that movie. It kind of seemed like that's what they were trying to do with this guy. This guy's like in over his head, never had to be in charge anymore. He doesn't trust them. And then at the end, he's kind of redeemed. But I found his like decision at the end to just smack the guy on the head with a wrench and then run away and get shot and killed. I don't think that worked. I don't get why he chose to do that. Like, I get why he like realized, oh, they were just bullshitting. They were all lying. Ripley was right. But the choice to just in that moment be like, okay, well, I guess I got to just attack this guy and then die.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
As my kids would say, he turned good. Yeah, I mean, I guess it didn't bother me that much, but I can see how it would have bothered you. It was a sort of a pointless choice. Maybe if the filmmaking had conveyed better that he had actually done something that mattered, like stop someone from pushing a button. Yeah,
like imagine like, and I hate doing. I've said this multiple times. I hate doing like the imagine if thing, but I think this movie is so close to being legitimately brilliant that I feel like they're just small tweaks. Like she makes a decision, she shuts the gate on him and then moves the platform. Like imagine if the reason she's able to do that after she makes the choice not to believe him is because of his intervention. But that's not the way that it happens in the movie.
Yeah, or set up a situation where she can't actually, open some particular door from her side, and like it's obvious they're going to get her, and then he like pushes a button on his end that opens it for her.
Yeah,
and, like I don't know. I get why you want a big dramatic thing like hitting somebody with a pipe, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff where toward the end of the movie, you kind of feel like they ran out of time and like they were just like writing the script like on the set that day.
That does feel like what it is. It's like, okay, we got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Well, and the weirdness for that for me was like, they didn't end up killing the one guy that survived. And that was surprising to me. What do you like? He got shot in the leg, and the movie ends with them kind of carting him off and him giving this long look back at the prison before he's taken away. And I was like, what's that for? Like, I don't know what that scene is for.
Yeah, I don't know. To carry, if we're gonna go the religious angle, maybe he's gonna carry this story with him, and then we're gonna get the new religion of Ripley.
Yeah, he's the shepherd of the religion of Ripley.
Yeah. See, the problem is I literally don't like know who that character was. Like, what else did he do in the movie other than survive? I don't.
He didn't want to fight, and then he did.
Okay.
And he had a chain around one of his hands. I don't know. That's the problem.
If he had been one of the characters I cared about, then that might have worked better for me. Like if I had some expectation of like, oh, what is this guy going to do when he gets out in the world? Or maybe the movie just wants us to believe that they're going to like experiment on him to death or something. I don't know.
Could be. I don't know what they'd get from him though. Yeah, I
don't know. Exposure to the aliens, environment, whatever.
Spores.
Yeah, spores.
Sure. I did like when Ripley died that the sun crests over the planet.
Yeah, that was great.
It's very, again, this is very, very pointed imagery, but when it works, it works.
Yeah.
Also, like it's like it cuts to this exterior photo of the burner getting turned off too.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like the fire dies down, the sun rises, like the end of suffering. Like it's kind of as dire and bleak as this film ends. It does end on a hopeful message. Like she succeeded. She prevented the company from getting this alien. They're all dead now, according to all the lore that we knew up until this point. Like the planet that had all of them on them is dead. The last ones were on the ship. They're dead now. She killed all the aliens.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes for like a beautiful tragedy if you look at the first three movies together. You're like, there's this woman exposed to this unknowable cosmic horror. She is the only one who understands its danger, and she continually tries to fight against it and destroy it, knowing how dangerous it is. And in the end realizes the only way to fully destroy it will be to sacrifice herself. And she willingly makes that sacrifice knowing the magnitude of it. And that's kind of beautiful. We're like, obviously the tones of the movies don't work together, but I like it as an arc of three movies.
Yeah.
And I don't think I like any alien movie that comes after this one.
No, this is the third best alien movie, like without a doubt.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I don't think I have any argument. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Actually, that's crazy.
I think Alien Resurrection is an interesting movie. I don't think it's good, but I do think it's doing some really weird things in a way that I'm like, huh, okay.
So there's this thing that's in this movie, and then like it's in this movie, it's in Alien, it's in all of them actually. And I wonder if this is like a Sigourney Weaver thing, or if this is just people's portrayal of the like people's sense of the character. But like in this movie, there are a couple of moments that go well out of their way to make her seem totally badass, which is like I guess that is the Ripley character. I'm just wondering where it comes from. So like what I mean is like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, especially because it's kind of a dark David Fincher-esque comedy moment, is when she's asking about the weapons, and the conversation goes on like 3 times longer than it needs to, but you don't mind because she's like, all right, what about guns? All right, what about flamethrowers? All right. And eventually she's like, you have no weapons of any kind. And it's just this great moment where like you were on the same page as Ripley of just being like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. And then there's the moment when she's in the mess hall and like going to get food, and they're all like staring her down and trying to like threaten her basically, and he says like, you don't want to be near me. I'm a bad guy. And then she's just like, then I must make you uncomfortable. And she sits down across from him, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, she sits down on like a crowded table surrounded by guys.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy across from her on each side of her, and she's sitting down. And one of the earlier shots, a wide of the cafeteria, showed that like half the tables were empty.
Yeah.
So it's not like she has to sit down right in the thick of these people. That's just a character defining moment. That's Ripley. She's seen some shit. She's not afraid of these guys anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it reminds you of the scene of sort of similar scenes in Aliens when they kind of try to push her around, and she just won't have it at all. So yeah, that's definitely her character, I guess. Yeah. I don't know what my question was exactly. I'm trying to sort of ferret out like what's David Fincher, what comes from where. And I think that's probably just Sigourney Weaver knows this character, and that's the kind of thing that Ripley would do. So
yeah. I feel like the Dylan character feels like a Fincher character to me, and I don't have any evidence to back that up. He just feels like it. This guy who's seen some shit, gone through some shit, and come out the other side a better person for it. Like in spite of all the terribleness going on, Dylan retains his faith the entire time. He's like steadfast in his beliefs, and he ends up sacrificing himself to make sure Ripley gets out, which is almost like like she's gonna die.
Yeah.
It's like that was one part in the movie that made me pause, because she's like, no, I want to stay here, I want to die, and he's like, not till it's dead. And then it starts climbing too, and he's like, oh, I gotta stay. I guess the movie has established that it's not trying to kill Ripley, so if it climbed out and Ripley stayed, it would just leave to hunt the other guy. So it's like sense. He has to stay. So I guess that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm really into his character, and I kind of wish, like, as much as I loved Charles Dance in this movie, and I totally love Charles Dance in this movie, I think he's fantastic. Because they kill him off halfway through, I kind of wish we just spent more time with the Dylan Ripley relationship and explored that a little bit more. But these two people, like, he's this man of faith that's gone through all his terrible shit and come out a believer on the other side, and she, at the beginning of the movie, is so exhausted and doesn't believe in anything anymore because she's gone through all this. I don't know. I think that would have exploring that from the beginning might have been more interesting.
Yeah, would have been nice for them to have maybe even just one more short scene together that just gives you a little bit of a better sense of who he is, maybe a little bit more complexity to him. I mean, that's the nice thing about Charles Dance and his character, and I think why the script actually has some kind of greatness to it is that his character's great. It makes perfect sense. We get to see like multiple dimensions of his humanity. He's like, he wants to protect the people that he lives with, but also he has kind of a conflicting relationship with the superintendent guy, and he's obviously attracted to Ripley, but he's like trying really hard to be like a gentleman about it. And like, there's just all these layers, and of course the acting kind of brings it out, but I think it's already there in the script. So it's like, I wish we had just a little bit more of that kind of complexity for one or two other characters. And I think Dylan would be a good candidate. I wonder if it would be as simple as just like reduce the number of inmates so that the camera doesn't have to do so much work keeping track of all of them. Sure. And then just drill down on a character like Dylan, for example. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that maybe would have done better. But yeah, I mean, these are definitely all scripting problems. Yeah. And I do think Fincher makes about as good of a movie as possible with what he had.
Yeah, probably.
All right, we've been talking about this movie for like an hour, so I think we're just about done with Alien 3.
Yeah, I think we figured it
out. Yeah. Not a great movie, but I think like you said, it shows. It takes a very good director to take a production as messy as this one and turn out something that's watchable. And I think that's what this movie is, unquestionably watchable. And actually, I think pretty good. So
yeah,
good job, Fincher. We'll see you in 7.
All right.
Which is a freaking masterpiece.
Yep.
Doof. All right, Matt. So let's wrap things up by talking about this year, not 1992, but 2020, and let's see what this year has got for us. Looking at this list before we get into it, what do you think? What does 2020 look like to you?
I mean, there's a few things I'm interested in, but I always find that like by the time the year has ended, there's been like 40 other movies that we never heard about, or maybe either didn't hear about, or it wasn't obvious that they were going to be good beforehand.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, and this list is also just kind of, I guess, the blockbusters, if you will, where I kind of never expect those to be life changing. I just expect them to be entertaining.
Sure.
So,
I pulled some of the biggest blockbusters of the year. I agree with you that the best movies of the year to me are the ones that I didn't know about in January.
Yeah.
Like if you had told me that Parasite would be my favorite movie of last year, this time last year, I would have said, what? Who? Where?
Yeah.
So
and some of these, I almost like, my first reaction when I saw the name of the movie was to roll my eyes, and then when I looked into who was behind it and who was going to be making it, I was like, oh, okay, well, if they're doing it, it's going to be an interesting spin on this thing or this property or whatever.
Sure.
So,
all right, so let's start off with February though, because nothing good comes out in the month of January. That's a verifiable fact.
Never happened. Yeah.
There are actually some very good movies coming out this month, but couldn't talk about everything.
Okay.
So the first big movie, I think the first big release is actually a movie that a new trailer just came out yesterday for, which is Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This is the Margot Robbie sequel, kind of, to Suicide Squad. Movie that's doing its best to pretend Suicide Squad didn't exist,
but still using the same exact character and characterization and so forth.
What do you think about this movie? Are you in on this one? I'm pretty in on this movie.
Yeah, I think the trailer looks great. I mean, it's probably the best and most fun looking trailer that DC has put out with its new recent, collection. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sure, great. I'll probably see this one actually.
Yeah, it's directed by Kathy Yan, who is a director that I don't know a lot about. The only other movie she's directed is a movie called Dead Pigs that came out in 2018, a Chinese movie that I've never seen. So this is a big step up for her, and I'm pretty excited for it. So
yeah.
Margot Robbie's great. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in it. Ewan McGregor is always fantastic. I'm looking forward to this movie. Totally in.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Me too.
Also in February, we have The Invisible Man, which is a new take on the Universal Monsters story that has been told a million times before. What did you think about it? You watched this trailer just recently, right?
I like the trailer a lot, actually. I don't normally... I mean, what's funny is I didn't realize this was part of the stupid Universal Monsters thing until you told me.
It's not, because that doesn't exist anymore, but it's a Universal movie because Universal owns these rights. It's a fun concept. It looks like a fun concept. It looks like a fun horror movie. And I was like, watching the trailer, I was like, this is like a rare case where I see a trailer for a horror movie and I think I want to see it, instead of like, that looks too scary. Yeah. It seems to be taking the idea of an abusive relationship and adding invisibility to it, which is horrifying. I really like that idea.
Yeah, right. It's the thing that I like from horror movies, where it's a normal thing normal people are scared of, and then we add a horror twist to the conceit to make it entertaining. Yeah. Next, we move into March, and we have Onward. This is the Pants Dad movie, the Pixar movie. What'd you think of this one? I'm pretty unsure on this movie. I'll probably end up seeing it because it'll be with I'll be wanting to take my kids, and sure. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Pixar, so yeah. I mean, Toy Story 4. I finally saw Toy Story 4. I saw it I saw it over the Christmas break, actually, which was way late. But I thought that was fantastic. I was like, oh, I love Pixar. And, I admit that the story is just like, okay, but I've seen this, but it'll probably be funny. It'll probably be cute. It'll probably have great characters. I'll probably cry. So, I think I'll watch it. I think if I had a movie most likely to make me weep openly in the theater surrounded by strangers, I think Onward is probably the top of that list, because it seems like a movie that I think that it's so, the concept is ridiculous. When I first saw that this was what this movie was about, I was like, what? But it did one of those things that could sneakily
just destroy you, because
Yeah.
obviously it's going to be this kid learning to like let go of his father, right? Because his dad's not going to come back to life. Like, that is definitely not what's happening at the end of this movie. Is the dad comes back to life and he's reunited with his father and all is well. Like, even if they succeed in their quest to bring his dad back temporarily, it's only for a day, and he'll just like say hi to him and then goodbye, and then we're all going to cry.
Yeah, I think that was basically my thought as well.
Yeah. So that's Onward. It comes out March 6th, the first of 2 Pixar movies this year. Then we move on to March 20th, and then we have A Quiet Place Part 2. Did you ever see the first A Quiet Place movie? I know you're not big into horror.
No, never saw it.
I think that's one you would like, because it's kind of like a high concept horror movie that isn't so much scary as it is just super tense. Basically, the conceit is that these aliens that hunt via sound take over a planet, and this lone family is trying to survive. And then they had a baby, and that's not good for being quiet. But this is the continuation to that movie. It looks, I don't know if you ever played the game Last of Us on PlayStation.
No.
It's a good game. You should play it. But it seems very similar to that game.
Yeah, it's interesting that the trailer looks very like monster movie-ish. Like I remember the trailers for the first movie, and you don't really see the monster in those trailers. In fact, you're not even sure if there is a monster. And in this trailer, they're just monsters all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's doing the aliens thing.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I am cautiously optimistic. It's one of those things where I really, really liked the first one I didn't need it to have a sequel.
Yeah.
But here we are, and so I'm trying to be optimistic about it, because it's the same. All the same people working on it. So I will see.
Yeah, I like that I can easily tell which characters died in the first one by which ones are not showing up in the second one.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I believe you.
That's not shit. John Krasinski is directing it. He directed both movies. And Emily Blunt is his wife. So
yeah,
that's why they're making more, because it's like a family picture.
Oh.
All right, so moving to the end of March, on the 27th, we have Disney's Mulan. This is one of the first, I guess the Pixar is. So there's a Pixar and a Disney movie in the same month. Wow. So what is your opinion on this? Because I've seen the trailers, and I'm pretty excited for this movie, even though they took all the singing out of it, which seems like a dumb decision.
Did they?
They did.
Like we know that?
Yeah.
That's weird.
No singing. Well, here's the thing. I don't think musicals are super popular in China, and they are basically crafting this movie to be like a huge hit in China. So,
well, that's interesting, because that will make it feel very different. Like I don't know if I will want to take my kids to that movie if there's no like kid appeal. Like it's sort of just a drama if there's no singing.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they don't try to work some kid appeal into it, but yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, yeah, it looks good. The trailers look good. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
I'm just, in terms of how I'm going to prioritize it, I'm not really sure yet.
Sure, yeah. And I'm on the record as being overly, like, just overall pretty positive on these Disney remakes. Like, I don't get into the hatred of them quite like other people do. So yeah, I'm going to go see it. I
thought Aladdin was pretty good. I'm
too.
Still pretty mad they didn't do the Jafar snake scene, but other than that, it was fine.
I still haven't seen the Lion King one. Isn't that weird?
I think which ones have I seen? I haven't seen very many of them. So
yeah, well, that's not weird for you. I feel like, how have I not seen the Lion King movie yet? I think what happened was there was one day I wanted to watch it at home, and then I was like, well, Disney Plus is coming out soon. I'll just wait till then. But it's not on Disney Plus yet. So I was just like, well, I'm not going to pay for it if it's going to be on Disney Plus eventually.
That makes sense.
And I've seen the first Lion King many times, so why do I got to prioritize this?
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's coming January 28th, 2020 to Disney Plus. Now I know. Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. So moving on to April. On April 8th, we have James Bond number 25, Daniel Craig's final film in the series, No Time to Die. Have you watched the trailer for this one?
Yeah.
What is your opinion on James Bond as a whole?
Complicated. I mean, I think we did like one of our first podcasts ever was the James Bond podcast where
it was, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I tend to see these movies because I like well-made action movies.
Sure.
But that said, I'm not going to stan the franchise or the character or really anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get to see a lot of movies. I might not waste one of my few movie going slots on this one, but
I think that would be fair.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I am on the record as being pretty down on Spectre, the last one before this one. I do not think that was a good movie at all.
Yeah.
I think the best James Bond, like I've never been a huge James Bond person either. My favorite one, the best one in my opinion, is Casino Royale, which is the first Daniel Craig one. I thought that was a great movie. I really liked that a lot. And if this is more like that, I will like it. I'm probably going to end up seeing it. Ana de Armas is in it, who starred in Knives Out, last year's Knives Out, the Rian Johnson movie, which is one of my favorite movies. So like her being in the movie makes me want to be like, hell yeah, Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig together again. I'll go to that. But I'm not that excited for it outside of that.
Right. I mean, I think Bond films are like fast food. They're like a product where you know what you're getting. You're getting some wish fulfillment or some vicarious action type situations, and you're not going to be challenged too much. And sometimes you're in the mood for that, and that's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of fast food, the next movie is Black Widow. On May 1st, Black Widow finally gets her own movie. What did you think? Are you excited about this movie? I know you love the MCU.
I love the MCU. They've earned a lot of cred with me, and I think it could. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks okay. I don't know. It's honestly not the best trailer in the world. It's not a trailer that thrilled me to see. I was not like, oh yeah. I was like, okay, a Marvel movie, good. So I guess that's lukewarm, but I'll probably end up seeing it anyway because Marvel.
Sure. I think it's weird because I don't know. It's like we're in a really weird Marvel time, right? Where the Infinity Saga is over. We're starting on this phase 4, and this is the movie that's going to open the phase, which is like a flashback movie. I think it takes place immediately after Captain America Civil War, where she goes on the run and apparently returns back to Russia. I'm not sure how much that's going to work or not. I mean, I think what I have confidence in is that Marvel is going to make a solid movie. How it feels as part of this ongoing franchise, I don't know. And maybe their goal with this movie is to make a statement that they're not going to be making big cinematic universe franchise movies anymore. They're just going to make like one-off movies that are good. And that's what their focus is moving now. I don't know. We'll see. But,
yeah, I mean, it's like it's weird because unless they do some magic in this movie where I don't know, she's like cloned or some wild shit like that, where like she like now she's going to be in the next phase because she didn't actually die or something like that.
I don't think they're going to do that.
But then that begs the question, like you would like you open the MCU with Iron Man and then you close the Infinity Saga with Iron Man dying. You open this phase with Black Widow, the character who died in the last phase. Like that's just weird unless you're going to do something like I don't get it, and maybe I won't get it. Maybe it's not intended to be gotten, and I'm overthinking it. But
sure,
it is a weird choice. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, that comes out May 1st, so we'll find out then. It has Florence Pugh in it, who is an actress that I've fallen in love with the past year. She's had a really great 2019. She was in Midsommar. She was in Little Women. She was in another movie that I'm drawing a blank on right now, but she's having a great career and well earned. She's fantastic in everything I've seen her in. So
cool.
Next we move to June, and in June we have Wonder Woman 1984. This is the sequel to the original Wonder Woman movie. It is also directed by Patty Jenkins. What do you think?
Looks fun. Like the trailer looks fun. This one, so the Black Widow trailer, I kind of reacted with like, oh, okay. This one, I was like, hey, that looks fun. This looks like a fun, exciting movie that I will enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've gotten a pretty good ability to judge a movie by its trailer, if that's not too ridiculous a thing to say, and it just looks like it's gonna be fun.
Well, I think we've watched a lot of trailers in our days, so I think it's fair to have some confidence in your trailer watching ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am on record. I've said that phrase a lot today. I loved the original Wonder Woman. I know you were a little bit more mixed on it, but I really enjoyed my time with that movie. So I'm confident that Patty Jenkins is going to come make another great movie here. I do think it's a little bit weird that Chris Pine's character is back. I mean, I don't want to pass judgment on it yet because I don't know what they're doing with it. Like, how is he alive? Because he's definitely dead, and it's also 40 years later, so I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, there's going to be a reason, obviously, but it seems like I don't want her to be 40 years later still hung up on this one guy. Like, I just like that's not where I want my Wonder Woman. But so we'll see. I have faith that they're going to do something interesting with it, but that is the one thing where I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I guess I'm less because Chris Pine is pretty delightful. And I like their chemistry. So I was like, okay, well, fair. That's a known quantity. I at least know I enjoyed that about the last movie. So if we're getting that again, then even if it doesn't make sense, I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. I said 40 years later. It's actually like 60 years later because that was a World War I movie. I forgot about that.
This is 1980. So, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Also, Pedro Pascal is playing... it looks like they're doing a Donald Trump thing. Kind of. Okay,
cool.
I don't know. He's like, do you see him in the trailer? Like, he doesn't look like Pedro Pascal. He's got this big wig on, and he's the villain in this movie.
I mean, I've seen the trailer and did not remember seeing Pedro Pascal. So yeah, he must be pretty made up.
He doesn't look like himself. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah. I like to think that's what the Mandalorian looks like under his armor.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's Wonder Woman 84 coming out June 5th. We move on to June 12th with a film called Candyman. And I put this on the list, but I realized after I did that you might not know what Candyman is. Have you ever seen a Candyman movie?
No, I mean, I'm aware that it's like a sort of classic horror B movie type thing.
Yes.
Never seen it because I heard it was like really violent and horrible.
It's great. I mean, but yes, it's very violent.
Yeah.
It's like a urban legend slasher type movie.
I think it's one of those things where I heard about it when I was a kid, and thus it's taken on this stature of being just like utterly horrific in a way where if I saw it now, I'd probably just like it would just be nothing, you know. But
sure.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it. It's written by Jordan Peele, which gets my attention.
Yeah.
And this director Nia DaCosta, like, Peele's like really backing her a lot to give her this movie, and I think so he has a lot of faith in her ability to make this thing. So she's done another movie called Little Woods, which is supposed to be really fantastic. She wrote that as well. So I am looking forward to this movie. I rebooting Candyman is something I'm very much into, so I'm gonna see it and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think just telling me it was Jordan Peele was enough to get me on board. So
okay, good. Should have led with that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to June is obviously a very big month in movies, especially these blockbusters, because on the 19th of June, we have Soul, the second Pixar movie of this year. Had you watched this trailer before?
No.
I told you to?
No. It's an interesting trailer because it's very clear that it's about a dead person.
Yes.
And then it's like from the makers of Coco and Inside Out, and you're like, okay, I get it. We're doing a sub brand of Pixar that's basically about death.
Yeah, well, it's a Pete Docter directed and written film, and he did both of those. Yeah, it's Up.
Yeah, it seems just like a very short trailer, so it's really hard to actually say what the movie is.
Sure,
but I mean, I think I'll just say again, like, I'm gonna cry. It doesn't really matter. It's probably gonna have a lot of music in it. You get the sense that it's kind of like Coco. It's got this motif of music throughout it, so that's gonna be nice.
It's like a jazz movie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a Pete Docter jazz movie starring Jamie Foxx and made by Pixar. Like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all kinds of in.
Absolutely.
It has David Diggs in it as well, who is a Hamilton. He did Lafayette and Hamilton, and I love him so much. So very excited about Soul. I think I'm looking more forward to that one than Onward. If I have to pit the two Pixar movies against each other this year, Soul is the one I'm excited about.
Okay. Well, you will have to pit them against each other. So.
Okay. I will do that.
All right.
Next we have on the 25th, we have Top Gun Maverick, the long-awaited, I put in quotes, sequel to Top Gun.
Oh yeah, we've all been wondering what's Maverick doing? Where's Maverick?
Apparently the story is Maverick is 60 years old. It's still a captain.
Doing the same thing.
Still flying fighter planes.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Isn't that sad? I hope the movie's about how sad that is.
About the fact that we haven't had like a military dogfight since the first Top Gun movie.
Yeah, isn't it in the trailer like you're the only person that has shot down 3 planes in 40 years?
Yeah, I think so. So something like that, which I think is true. Like how often have we ever had a war that involved fighter jets on both sides?
I don't think ever. Have we ever?
I think maybe Iraq had fighter jets, but I don't think they.
Yeah, but like were they in dogfights with each other?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. In any case, it's doubtful that Maverick was involved in any of that.
Yeah.
So
some people are really excited about this movie, and I don't get it. I enjoy Top Gun. It's a silly, fun movie. I don't get it.
I mean, I like Tom Cruise.
I do too. Yeah.
So that brings a lot to the table, and I feel like he wouldn't have gotten involved if there wasn't something interesting. But that's kind of all. That's kind of all it's got going for me. The trailer is pretty boring looking.
Yeah, but it looks like he's really flying that jet.
That's true.
Did they let Tom Cruise fly a fighter jet?
Are we going to make this the gimmick of this movie? This is Tom Cruise actually flying the fighter jet, and his life is at risk?
I think it might be.
Didn't they do that with the helicopter in the last Mission Impossible movie?
Yeah,
where he's clearly like actually about to die in this tiny helicopter. Yeah,
basically like. He did it, and like all the professional helicopter pilots were like, I'm not doing that. That's too risky. And Tom Cruise is like, yep, I'm going to do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's going to die.
Well, if this is his last movie, I guess I'll have to go see it.
I mean, it's done filming, so presumably he did not crash a fighter jet.
Okay, this is his second to last movie. The next one, he's going to like actually go into space.
Also on the 25th, and I think this is the last actual trailer we have because then we're moving too far into the future, but is In the Heights. This is, I don't know if you're aware of this. This is a Tony Award winning musical written by our Hamilton friend, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Thank you. I blanked on his name for some reason.
Okay.
This was the first musical he wrote. It was very successful, and then he wrote Hamilton after this and somehow became even more successful. I have never seen this show. I've heard it's very good, and I'm really in on this trailer. I think it looks really fun, and I think if you like movie musicals, you're probably going to like this movie.
Yeah, the trailer really convinces you that they're doing a lot of interesting things, right? It seems like it's going to be well made on kind of every level. To the degree you can tell that from a trailer. Yeah, it looks really good. And
they picked a song that I think sounds very similar to Hamilton, like a Hamilton-esque song to try to like attract those people, which is a very smart marketing move. I think this movie's going to do really well, actually. Yeah, you can definitely hear the Lin-Manuel Miranda touch in the not only the music but also the kinds of rhymes that he goes for. Yeah. So. And the lead is his longtime friend that played a role in Hamilton for a very long time. Okay. So I lied. We have one trailer we've seen, because on July 17th, we have the next Christopher Nolan movie, Tenet, which had a trailer that came out last week. Did you see that? Yeah. I forgot to link that here because I assumed you had seen it. Oh, definitely. Because it's Christopher Nolan. Yeah. It seems very Christopher Nolan. I mean, it seems extremely. It's the Inception prestige Christopher Nolan. Isn't it? I think. Isn't it weird how his movies have such a characteristic style, and yet I can't actually put my finger on what that is? Yeah. Like they all look the same, but how so exactly? True. That is true. Our very first podcast was Deconstructing Christopher Nolan. That's the first episode we ever did. Maybe us being better at podcasting should revisit Christopher Nolan one day. Yeah. And actually go through his movies one by one. Better at podcasting and probably better at thinking about movies too. I would hope so. It's been, 4 years? Yeah. Yeah. All right, we're going to go fast through these last ones because we know very little about them. But on August 21st, Bill and Ted Face the Music, the actually long-awaited Bill and Ted sequel. How do you feel about Bill and Ted generally? Do you like those movies? That was one of those things that didn't really make a big impression on my youth the way it did some people. Like, same for me. I think I enjoy them. They're not like this nostalgia fixture for me.
I love Keanu, obviously. So I mean, and it'll probably be fun. I'll probably see it at some point.
Yeah, that's basically where I am as well. In September, we have Mank, which is, hey, a David Fincher movie.
Cool.
We have a new David Fincher movie. This is about Herman J. Mankiewicz, Orson Welles' co-writer on Citizen Kane. So this is basically a movie about the making of Citizen Kane. And it's a movie that Fincher has been trying to do for a very, very long time. The script actually was written by his dad. And he's been trying to make this movie forever. So this is a long gestating passion project for him. And I am actually really excited about it because anything that's a passion project for David Fincher is super interesting to me.
Yeah. And this says it stars Gary Oldman. So yes. So yes.
Yeah. I am like we've been talking, and maybe we'll feel differently by the time we're at the end of this journey, but it seems like a movie that is very different from the type of film he normally makes. I
maybe there's so little information about it right now, but yeah.
Sure. All right, next up, we have in November 6th, we have Marvel's Eternals. This is the second Marvel movie of the year. We know so little about this movie. We know it's directed by Chloe Zhao, who made a movie in 2018 called The Rider. That was a really, really fantastic movie. So good. Very good, like kind of prestige, Best Picture nominated film. And then she's making Marvel's Eternals, starring Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, Richard Madden. I know nothing about the Eternals. Kumail Nanjiani is in it. Kit Harington is in it as well. I don't know anything about these comic books, so I don't know what to expect about this movie at all, other than it's Marvel. It's probably going to be pretty good. I liked Chloe Zhao's last movie, so I'm in.
Yeah, I'll be cautiously optimistic, I think.
Yeah. And then our penultimate movie of this list is Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which premieres on December 8th, 2020. Matt, I think you're pretty excited about this movie.
Isn't it nice to know in advance what the best movie of the year is going to be?
And it's coming in right at the end there, too.
The worst part is I have the whole year to wait for it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I am indescribably excited about this.
I am, too. I think we should be getting a trailer relatively soon. I mean, it's still almost a year away, but I think maybe 3 or 4 months and we'll get like a teaser trailer for it and we'll start getting a feel of what Villeneuve's Dune is going to look like.
Yeah.
But, I think you and I have been in on this movie literally since it was announced.
Right. If anything, I'm trying to not do the thing where I like look at all the production stills and stuff, because I feel like that's going to do the thing where then my expectations are too high and then I don't like it as much as I would otherwise. But
sure.
But yeah, I'm super, super excited.
Yeah, me too. And then to round out 2020, geez, these years, we have Steven Spielberg's West Side Story coming out on the 18th of December. I like West Side Story. I love Steven Spielberg. I'm very interested in what he does with this movie. I'm wondering if like In the Heights coming out this year is going to steal some thunder. I mean, not to be that person, but In the Heights is a Puerto Rican musical set in New York.
Yeah. And West Side Story is like 100 years old and everyone's like seen it and heard of it and read it in high school and so forth. Like, I mean, it like you can execute this as well as humanly possible. And we all know this story already. So
yeah, it's still just West Side Story. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Spielberg is a great director. I'm sure I'll enjoy it, but I wonder if having these two movies come out, and I think they've done a good job in separating them by almost half a year. So maybe the conversation will have moved on from In the Heights, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just seems like not a great year for this project. He's been working on this movie for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be good. I probably won't see it. Honestly, I got very little incentive to see it. So
That's fair. I'll probably see it because my wife loves musicals, and so do I. Cool. All right. So that is basically 2020. There are, of course, a lot more smaller movies we didn't cover. Those are the movies I'm actually more excited about here. I look at this list and I'm like, what are the movies on this list that I'm like super excited for? Fincher's film, Nolan's film, In the Heights, and Dune. And that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I mean, there are a few things on here I'd say I'm really excited about. Most of them I'm like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure there's going to be a few more films this year, like we said earlier, where it's like, oh, I I didn't hear about this until people started saying that they saw it in the theater, and it was great. So
yeah, we have Sundance coming up pretty soon, and that will basically be it's always the film festival that tells you the movies that you're going to be excited to talk about for the rest of the year. So pretty excited about that. It always ends up being a good year, but just looking at this list, I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, right.
All right, well, that's all we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on David Fincher, on Alien 3, or on the year 2020 and any of those movies we just talked about, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you can find our newest show at Doof Media, Kingslingers. Hopefully, by the time you are hearing this, iTunes will have approved our request to get that podcast on their service because they're taking forever. But Kingslingers is our long-awaited Dark Tower podcast where Matt and I are journeying chapter by chapter through Stephen King's 8-book series. We just released an introduction episode today as we're recording this. The first episode covering the first chapter of the first book of the Dark Tower will be premiering on January 16th. That's the next Thursday. But you should be able to subscribe right now on any of those sites, Stitcher, any of those sites that Matt just said, except maybe iTunes if they don't get their act together.
And they will eventually.
They will. It'll be there. So just keep searching it, and we'll make an announcement when it's there, of course, as well. But we are very excited about that show, and we're excited for you guys to join us on this journey. I love those books so much, and I can't wait to share them with Matt and with all of you.
Yeah, me too. This week, I also went on Media MD and talked about the Magnus archives. So if that's something you're interested in or something you have listened to, it's a horror podcast, go ahead and check out Media MD and listen to us talk about it.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to be on there pretty soon to talk about Alien, because for some reason those Australians have never seen Alien, which is insane.
Dear God. What a good fit, though. We just talked about Alien 3.
I know, it's perfect. This is synergy. This is synergy in the Doof Media Podcasting Network. If you want to support Media MD, if you want to support Kingslingers, or if you want to support this show, you can do that by heading on over to Patreon. That's patreon.com/doofmedia and pledging $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. You get tons of bonus features, extra content, access to our Discord, a bunch of stuff at every single donation level on there. And every dollar you send to us goes right back into these shows, helps make new shows like Kingslingers, helps make shows like this, helps us expand and explore and do new things. Thank you to everyone that supports us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is right. We will see you all next week when we are covering Young Justice Season 1. Robin, Super Lad. I forgot all their names.
Aqualad.
Aqualad, Superboy.
Megan.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.